Racial tensions are heightened in America ever since Trump won the presidency, and there may be a revolution on the horizon. And people would automatically assume that there will be a man at the head of it. However, this time, we should try something different and let a woman be the head of the new revolutionary movement. Yes, it's true that Moors were the first noblemen in France and Europe and Spain, but do you know how we lost that?
We didn't fall because of some inherent white superiority. We fell to our own people who, once divided by greed and internal power struggles, decided to use the so-called white man as a proxy to disinherit one another. Bleaching out was accelerated because many Moors had an appetite for white slave women and concubines, taking them into harems to create human bouquet or variants within the gene pool. These lighter-skinned children, the amalgamated or Franciscan Moors, were often raised under the heavy influence of their slave mothers. These mothers would teach their children to identify with their own Roman or European heritage, rather than their father's Moorish nobility, leading these children to fight against the very idea of being Moors. Eventually, these amalgamated heirs worked from the inside to supplant the original order, trading their true birthright for the status of white or Spaniard, while systematically hiding the true history and making the original Moors appear as ghosts. The fall of Granada in 1492 was the death knell that allowed the Jesuits and the Vatican to follow our Moorish bloodlines and systematically bleach them out through parochialism and forced education to ensure we would never be the true divine inheritors again.
Yes, it was the black men. The Moor men. John Tubman, who was Harriet's first husband, he refused to follow her up north to help free other people because he had already got his free papers. And when she came back to get him, he had already remarried. There was actually several slaves who refused to follow Harriet. And quiet as it kept, black men still feel like that to this day.
I don't feel like I would have followed Harriet Tubman.
Why?
Simply because, for one, I don't know your conversion rate. Nobody knows that. Like, how many people really made it through the Underground Railroad? We just know she had that, but nobody know, like, 400 people made it through. Like, no, she might have been, like, the only person that knew how to get through this shit. People dying, she going back getting some more and trying it again. Nobody know who really made it. So I wouldn't have followed her based on that. Secondly, I feel like I would have been a pretty good slave. Like, I don't think I would have been getting beat to the point where I needed to leave, you know, because I know how not to with the people they was talking shit, man. That's why they getting, if my back looked like that, I probably would leave. But I just go to work, man, and sing, and, you know, I don't have a reason to leave. I ain't got fucked up yet. Y'all talking shit. I realize, hey, man, I think this how it's going to be for a little while. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to go along with it. You know, if y'all want to be on that Nat Turner shit, cool. Y'all will be historians later on in life. They gonna talk about y'all, but it ain't worth it to me. I'd rather just be a nigga that didn't make the history books.
Now let's fast forward a little bit. We all know Martin Luther King had a dream, but did you guys know he also had an agenda? He wanted to change the way the world saw interracial friendships and relationships. One of the reasons was so that no one else would ever feel the heartbreak that he felt when he was not able to marry his one true love.
He just wanted to be with Betty, anywhere and everywhere.
He said, well, what do you think about us getting married? And I said, well, I don't think it's a very good idea. You know, I said it would be wonderful if we were a different time and we were different people, but I don't think it would work. I think he was probably more angry that he would have feelings for someone and he couldn't go ahead and do what he wanted to do because of the race situation.
Not only was Martin's first love a white woman, but he was being watched by the FBI, and when the notes came out, it spoke on how he routinely cheated on his wife with white women, and he was planted to overshadow Malcolm X, who was actually running amok at that time. Malcolm was nothing to play with. However, by the end of his life, even Martin knew that he had made a mistake.
The civil rights movement didn't address the issues. They started talking about social integration. Social integration was not the problem with black folk, and even the concept of civil rights. They twisted and corrupted that concept. Civil rights was initially talking about what you're going to do for black folk in the country when it came out in 1865 and 1866 in its first civil rights laws. And what those civil rights laws were trying to address was correct the Dred Scott decision of 1857. And what I mean by that black folk had no rights and they can own and control nothing.
This philosophy. The white man pays Reverend Martin Luther King, subsidizes Reverend Martin Luther King, so that Reverend Martin Luther King can continue to teach the Negroes to be defenseless. That's what you mean by nonviolent. Be defenseless. Be defenseless in the face of one of the most cruel beasts that has ever taken the people into captivity. That's this American white man.
We're not integrationists, and we believe that you're a fool to try and mix with someone who doesn't love you. That doesn't mean that we in any way condone what those crackers are doing in Birmingham, Alabama. Our people should know that whenever you try and force yourself upon someone that vicious, he's going to go to extreme to show you that he's actually the dog that he is.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare.
In my opinion, when Martin was no longer controllable and the government decided it was time to get rid of him, word on the street is that he was set up by another black man who really only worried about rising himself up to the next rank. And that man became the next voice for the black community, and he had did so much damage up until the time of his passing, which I believe was just recently. And he was rumored to be a government agent for the white man.
And this guy's standing over his dead body, okay, and he's pointing at where James Earl Ray is supposed to be, okay? And this kid's name is Merrill McCullough. It turns out that Merrill McCullough had been an informant for the Memphis Police Department, had been working for the FBI also. So on national TV, Sam Donaldson calls up CIA headquarters, and he gets the desk officer there, and he goes, "Do you have a man named Merrill McCullough that works there?" And the guy looks, and he goes, "Let's see. Yeah, we do. Because do you mind if I talk to him?" So McCullough comes in telephone, and Donaldson asks, "Are you the Merrill McCullough who's in that famous picture of Martin Luther King when he's dying on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel?" And he goes, "Yes." And he goes, "And you work for the Central Intelligence Agency?" And he goes, "Yes." So now we have the guy standing over King's that pointing to the wrong place we now know was an undercover agent.
And the last words he said in this world, "Okay, Jonesy, I'll get my top coat." And I heard this thing say, "Bow!" And I knew that was him. I said, "Oh, my God, they got it." And then I had to run about 50 feet down and back up, and I got to him. And I started crying, and then I heard Jesse Jackson say, he told me, "Jesse, take our people on to the mountaintop." And that didn't bother me, even though I know Jesse got nowhere near him. And then Jesse said, "I held his head in my hand while he died." And that didn't get to me. And then Jesse said, "Look at my shirt." And I looked around, sure enough, and Jesse Jackson's shirt was drenched in blood. And I realized the only way Jesse could have gotten that blood was stoop down on that floor at the Lorraine Motel and rake that blood off that floor and put that blood on him. And I went crazy. I really tried to kill Jesse. They grabbed us and all that, but that hurt me so bad. The other thing was, when Abernathy came back, says, "No need of prayer, no need of cry, no need of nothing. He is gone. It's over with. He's gone to glory." And we called the meeting, the staff meeting, and Jesse claimed to have been ill. And Abernathy told him, "Jesse, go ahead to the room and relax." Jesse had to have run like hell that room into that airport, because he got out of Memphis to Chicago. All us feeling everybody was still in the motel. Cut the televisions on the next morning. That was Jesse Jackson in Chicago with that same bloody shirt on. telling that same lie. I've never respected Jesse since that moment. When they shot Dr. King, a black guy come running around that corner saying, he went that way, he went that way. James Earl Ray no more killed Dr. King, and I killed him. And everybody knew it. He was a Apache set up.
What you're fixing to witness now is the man who came by to get King to take him to dinner. And 30 years later at a press conference, he slipped.
But that gave me the wonderful privilege of spending the last hour on earth. 3 preachers in a room, Abernathy, King, and Kyle. And we spent that last hour together in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel. The press is always curious, and writers, what went on? What did you talk about? I said, we just talk preacher talk. What preachers talk about when they get together.
Y'all pay real attention
and all
to what you're fixing to hear now.
About 5:45, we walked on the balcony, and he was talking to people in the courtyard. He stood here and I stood there. Only as I moved away, so we could have a clear shot, the shot rang out.
Thank you.
Turned around and then stood back on the balcony.
Listen.
Now, let's talk about another government-appointed activist and one of Donald Trump's best friends, Al Sharpton, pictured here with another man that he actually helped take down. He wore a wire, worked for the FBI for years, and he helped take down record executive, black activists, as well as some cartel.
After all these years, the Reverend Al Sharpton admits he was an FBI informant.
Yes, he says that he was the cat that got the rats, but others say that Sharpton's secret life was not by choice. CBS 2 political reporter Marcia Kramer has the story.
Michelle Obama probably never knew that one of the guests at her recent White House 50th birthday party was an FBI mafia informant who helped bring down members of the Genovese crime family. Reverend Al Sharpton, now a confidant of both the First Lady and the President and of Mayor Bill de Blasio, has his own unique take on his days as the government's confidential informant number 7.
In my own mind, I was not an informant. I was cooperating with investigations.
The revelations threaten to embarrass Sharpton as he kicks off his National Action Network convention this week with de Blasio and President Obama the headliners. But de Blasio, who calls Sharpton family, is sticking by his buddy.
Doesn't change the relationship one bit. I'm very proud to be his friend. I think he has done a lot of good for the city of New York and for this country. I have the exact same positive view of him I had before.
Sharpton has been dogged for years by reports that he was an FBI informant, helping the government go after boxing promoter Don King and music executives. Now we learn he also went after mobsters, including the legendary Vincent the Chin Gigante, the so-called Oddfather who paraded around in his bathrobe and pajamas. Though he has ducked and dodged questions about whether he wore a wire for the feds, that wasn't possible today since a batch of government documents were made public.
The conversations were recorded.
And there's also the issue of how he became an informant. Some say he was pressured into it after he was caught in a drug sting. This HBO undercover sting video that aired in 2002 shows Sharpton with a cowboy hat pulled down over his bouffant hairdo. Sharpton appears to nod when an agent offers him a cut from future drug sales. But now Sharpton claims he went to the feds for protection from threats from mob-connected music executives and was asked to rat out the bad guys.
They were threatening to kill me.
And while the feds say his information helped bring down guys like Gigante, Sharpton says he didn't know how his information was being used.
I have never met any of these guys. The guy with the pajamas, I don't walk around with guys that walk outside pajamas. I never met them.
Even before black men started fighting, killing, and snitching on each other, black women were behind the scenes and boots on ground fighting racial discrimination in the civil rights movement. We don't hear a lot of those stories because they couldn't get turned or brought.
Before the civil rights movement, there were the Black women's clubs, powerful networks that used education and athletics to uplift entire communities. They didn't just talk about empowerment, they built it. Today we share their story to honor these Black queens who shaped generations. Starting in the 1890s, Teachers, mothers, and activists across the country formed local clubs like the Phyllis Wheatley Clubs, Colored Women's Federations, and the NACWC. They built kindergartens, organized public health drives, and sponsored sports teams for young Black women who had nowhere else to play. Through physical education and competition, they taught girls confidence, teamwork, and leadership, decades before society believed women belonged on the field. Their work helped shape institutions like the YWCA Colored Division and the early women's physical education programs at HBCUs. By the 1910s, their influence reached every corner of America, from rural Alabama to urban Chicago, creating spaces for women to grow strong, smart, and unstoppable.
African American women were the backbone of the civil rights movement, leading with strength and resilience. Figures like Rosa Parks ignited the Montgomery bus boycott, refusing to give up her seat and sparking a nationwide demand for justice. Behind the scenes, women like Ella Baker organized grassroots campaigns, empowering communities to stand up for their rights. Fannie Lou Hamer's powerful speeches gave voice to the struggles of the oppressed, while Diane Nash's fearless leadership in sit-ins and freedom rides inspired a generation. These women, often overlooked, were the architects of change, their courage and determination fueling the fight for equality. Their influence reshaped the nation, proving that the power of a movement lies in the strength of its women.
Black women were too powerful in the movement. They were not able to blackmail, to stifle, or to flip them. So, what did the government do? They used the black man. They used the black man to go from the inside and to sabotage the black women in the civil rights movement.
When the civil rights movement became the black nationalist movement, the misogyny that black men share very deeply with white became more and more intense. Black nationalist men took this and started researching African history and began to say, well, in Africa, it is always the men who rule and the women bear children and they plant their little vegetable gardens. You must retreat from the controlling role you have had and, for example, symbolically walk 3 paces behind your man. During political meetings, we will sit and busy ourselves with embroidery or some such things. We will not talk when the men talk. The energy that should have gone towards fighting the system turned itself on to fighting black women, and the failure to deal with us as human beings, the insistence that to gain our manhood as black men, we will spit upon black women, because that'll give us the strength we need to fight white men, you see. That is where all of the energy went, and that is one very important reason that the black movement has in large part fallen apart. I was worn out, I was exhausted, I had seemed to have lost energy and interest in something called the black movement. And there are horror stories of women who had been brainwashed into believing they were supposed to answer every black man who approached us on the street, because of course it was all about sisterhood and brotherhood and love, and some man would say, hey sister, how you doing? And you would say, hello brother, and you get slapped. In some occasions you might get raped. The next thing you knew, this man was following you down the street saying, oh, you know, let's go to bed, and you'd say no, and he'd be screaming, you dirty black bitch at you. No, what's the matter with you? Every trick, you know, every exploitative warrior trick men have ever used was rolled out on us in the name of the black movement. My encounters with men, you know, the simplest encounter with a man, whether a man you work with or someone you have dinner with, the simplest encounter can turn into a conflict. So one is always watchful there. I'm always assessing women I meet in terms of, you know, how do we feel about them? How are we relating to such and such situation? For better or worse, there is not a situation in one's daily life that does not have feminist subtext, superstructure implications, and one is constantly aware of them. Even when you want to rest, it stands up and hits you in the face.
And to this day, black men use the same stereotypical white supremacy techniques and talking point to dismantle any type of power a black woman has. The FBI and the CIA no longer has to pay black men to do it, because they do it for free. And then they teach their sons how to do it. Not just halting any of the advancements we had made, but taking us back very far and holding us there and keeping us there as a whole and as a community. Now, to talk about something that is a little more recent, the Target boycott. The Target boycott was started by a black woman, a local activist, after Target stopped their DEI program. So once the boycott actually grew legs, Target panicked. And what did they do? They got a black man, Jamal Bryant. He came in, he hijacked the cause, He slapped his name on it, and then he prematurely called it off and said the Target boycott was finished and we did what we needed to do. In reality, nothing was done. The only thing that he had done was sabotage all of her hard work in favor for the billion-dollar company and sabotaging the progress of the Black community.
Why can't the founders of the Target boycotts and the Target fasts just work together? You commented this on one of my videos. This is for you.
We asked for 4 things, and I'm grateful to God if we've got 3 of them.
Pastor Jamal Bryant posted that video the day he ended the fast. Saturday morning, he went on CNN, and this happened.
So you acknowledge now that since the video, since calling off the fast, that you've got 2 of the 4.
Yes.
Now you've got 2 of the 4.
Yes. We asked for 4 things, and I'm grateful to God if we've got 3 of them.
Now, I've been covering the Minnesota action, which is called the National Target Boycott, since it started. And when asked why the Minnesota group wouldn't work with the other groups, this is what they've said the entire time.
I was asking what communication was taking place between y'all. That's when you said you did not want to work with them. That took place in April of 2025. So what I am...
Yeah, and I told you why. I said
I got you.
Work with them. And they don't have integrity, Roland. And as you just saw this week, that is a clear example of them not having integrity. So we don't need this kind of confusion in our community. Now they're trying to save face, talking about they're still in it. We don't need you in it. Go find something else to do with your time that doesn't involve confusing Black America at a time like this. How can you stand with this man in Washington, then turn around and say, oh, I'm still boycotting. Oh, my organization.
Now, this video can go on forever, but I think it's went on long enough. I just want to say, this time around, Black women need your support, not your suppression. You can't pick and choose what part of white supremacy you want to play a role in. You can't suppress the Black women and at the same time want the Black women to help you from getting suppressed by the white men while you're getting used by the white men.